surrender or escape.
Hey everybody, this is Adam coming to you from the desk with two news items that I feel may have been underreported and one commentary on a topic that's been bothering me, if I can control myself. Do you remember in 2005, shortly after Hurricane Katrina, when FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, went around taking control of everything for your own good? Well, this first story comes into me from a good friend of mine who's been trying to purchase a home in the city of Warwick. Come to find out through talking to the real estate agent that FEMA has put a new obstacle in the home buying process. So to buy a home here, apparently you must first contact and pay for out of pocket a FEMA approved surveying company to come in and inspect the property to determine its proper flood status. You will then be given a certificate of flood inspection, which determines whether or not FEMA requires that home to have flood insurance before you purchase it. Now keep in mind these FEMA flood maps are all new, shortly drawn up right after 2005. And that surveying company that you have to contact, it's not like you can contact any surveying company. There are 6 surveying companies nationwide that are FEMA approved. So whenever I hear about a federal agency putting their requirements where the Constitution don't shine, I stand up as straight as possible, cover my backside, and go looking for the facts. So I dropped by the Warwick, Rhode Island website at warwickri.gov, and sure enough, this story was on the home page of the website. Let's take a look. Okay, so it says here that FEMA has issued a flood modernization map known as a DFIRM, or Digital Flood Insurance Rate Map. This will help them to determine your BFE, your base flood elevation, to make sure that you comply with the National Flood Insurance Program, otherwise known as NFIP or NFIP, so that you pay the proper flood insurance rate. We'll call that one a FIR, FIR. But there are grandfathering rules, it says here, for certain properties and current homeowners set in place by NFIP. So if you're a current homeowner in a historic building or something like that, you may not have much to worry about. But if you're a new home buyer, someone who's looking to purchase property, a starter as they call them, consider this enforcement by attrition. So now that FEMA has issued DFIRMs to determine your BFE, and make sure you pay the proper FIR as according to the NFIP, you can now decide whether or not it's a good idea for the federal government to ensure that everyone has the proper level of flood insurance, or if this is just another infringement upon personal property rights and personal private business transactions. Now, I've yet to look into the legislation about this new FEMA requirement and exactly how it was implemented, but I plan to. In the meantime, check your city and town websites where you live to see if FEMA's been looking at your neighborhood. And as far as my friend, I think I'm going to recommend that he bid on a surplus FEMA trailer from down south and move it far away from any flood zones. So if you have any comments or additional information or questions about this story, you can contact us through the website. The second story I wanted to touch on today is about this guy who crashed his airplane into the IRS building in Austin, Texas on Thursday. There's a few different stories emerging from the media about this incident, but pretty much the media is saying that Andrew Joseph Stack, aka Joe Stack, a 53-year-old software consultant and musician, lit fire to his house and crashed his Piper aircraft into the IRS building in Austin after years of battling the IRS. He and an IRS manager were killed and 13 others were injured. Now, I don't know all the details of this case, but I wanted to talk roughly about this 6-page letter that Mr. Stack left behind on his website before he carried out this incident. It's a letter that the media is referring to as a manifesto, and it explains on the website his reasons for doing what he did. Now, I read the letter, and at times Mr. Stack's assertions border on communistic ideology, but at other times he makes some very good and pointed statements about the current tax system in the United States, the IRS, and the Federal Reserve, and exactly what they can drive a person to do, as horrible as that is. I'm definitely not holding this guy up as a hero the way I see some other people doing online. But this letter was a very well-written and articulate diatribe about what goes on with the IRS. And I don't condone his actions, but I learned a few things from the letter. Domestic terror material? I think not. But trust me, folks, go back and read Mr. Stack's letter. I learned a lot from reading the letter. It's a good read. Go back and read the Joe Stack Manifesto. And if anyone else out there is just as frustrated with the IRS and the Federal Reserve, don't go crashing your airplanes into any buildings. Just join the millions of us who are using the First Amendment to tackle the problem that way. You won't hurt anybody. And you definitely won't waste a perfectly good Piper Cherokee.
Now, the next comment I wanted to make today was about 2010 elections. For the past couple of years, including this year, in Rhode Island, we've had a guy running for the office of Lieutenant Governor by the name of Bob Healy, Robert Healy. Now, Mr. Healy asserts that once he wins the Lieutenant Governor's position, he will immediately eliminate that position, since that position is kind of useless and consists of sitting around and waiting for the governor to either go away or die. So eliminating that position would be extremely fiscally conservative and good for the state altogether, and Bob Healy is right on top of that. Now, I like Bob Healy. He has some very good ideas, but he has like 10-foot long hair and a coal miner's beard, so he hasn't been very popular in past elections in Rhode Island. I really felt like this year was Bob Healy's year, that he was going to win that lieutenant governor's office and eliminate the position just like he's been talking about. Since things are different, he had a good shot at this election. He still does. However, a strange dynamic has occurred today. After years of struggling, Rhode Island finally has a third party. It's called the Moderate Party. And people like myself have been waiting in 2010 for the Moderate Party to put up some candidates for the upcoming election. They haven't put up any. I learned recently they have put up one candidate. And who that candidate is in this context does not matter, because what office did they put that candidate up for? Lieutenant Governor. So I must ask you, Moderate Party of Rhode Island and Ken Block, chairman of the Moderate Party of Rhode Island, what are you thinking? Why did you put a candidate against Mr. Healy? Aren't you for fiscally conservative? Eliminating Lieutenant Governor's position? This is not a good start for the Moderate Party of Rhode Island. I really have to ask you, Moderate Party and Ken Block, please, withdraw your candidate. Let Mr. Healy do what Mr. Healy has to do after all this time.